Okay.
Okay.
And again, good morning to everyone. Today is April the 6th, Tuesday, the year of 2021. Our president, LaVon Manzi, will not be joining us for pre-conference, but he will be here for regular meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in our hands of the capable city clerk, Lisa Carol Lambert.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, April the 6th. We have approval of minutes from March the 30th.
Good job.
Everything's good.
Appeals, we have requests for waiver of the noise ordinance on June the 5th from 11 a.m. until 6:30 in Langen Park.
Fine.
April 25th from 12 to 4 in Langen Park. And April 11th from 11 to 4 in Langen Park.
Let's look at those one more time before we, because this is not Mr. Pope anymore, right?
Nope.
No,
No, they're different
no, these
people.
are different people.
These are different people, different times.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Never mind.
Only one is at the pavilion, and
Yeah.
that's a church fellowship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Angela Shavers Robinson, and this is regarding a ditch
Yeah,
that has not been repaired.
y'all may remember this. It was about a
Yes.
year ago on NAVCO. The Public Works went out and they went for a roadside ditch as opposed to a ditch that split property lines. It was just an accident. They've done a lot of work, but the lady just simply isn't satisfied. The ditch is still holding water. She said it didn't hold water at the time. We don't know because we were never there for any reason. So right now, the bottom line is Nick and Colonel Delap are both working very hard to brainstorm what could be and might be and what's affordable, what's reasonable. And I think we will be working on a solution with her this week and the beginning of next.
John, just real quick, listen for the. I would recommend in the meeting that I'll volunteer to go out and meet with her this afternoon or tomorrow sometime and see. I've driven by and looked at it. I think I know there's some short-term solutions that'll make her whole immediately, and then longer term, if we want to take on something else, we can look at it that way. But for the purposes of the day, like I said, if we know, I'm happy to meet her on site.
Yep, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Mr. Amber. Mr. Amber, yeah.
Yes.
While you're on the line, I do have some questions about ditches because I have been getting several messages from citizens, constituents talking about ditches and those being cleaned out. And I do know some ditches that's inside the city limit do belong to the property owner, and some do belongs to the city. Is there a map that can be accessed that a citizen can look to see if they're responsible for a certain ditch that's abutting their property and everything? Because again, we get several calls, and when they make calls to 311 and they get their response back, they be frustrated, et cetera. They never get a response back, or they don't have the knowledge to get a SRO number to check the status of it. And but if there's such thing as a map that a citizen can access to see if they're responsible for that ditch or if the city responsible for it?
Yeah, not a publicly available product. The challenge with the map, while it is good and the GIS has produced a tremendous product for it, it's not perfect. There are some ditches that probably have not been mapped and not completely clear. So unfortunately, sometimes it does take an interpretation to see if that ditch is in fact carrying any what's kind of described as city system water. So if water is landing on city right of way, and then it's traversing, you know, off the road and into a pipe and then into a ditch, those are ditches that the city maintains. In a lot of instances, that's not the case. And those are the ditches that we say that are privately maintained. We will go back oftentimes and look at the street acceptance or the subdivision acceptance and see if there was some other language that may have accepted that drainage as well. But more often than not, you know, if the water has not come out of the sky, landed on the city's right of way and gotten into the system, then those ditches would be privately maintained, as opposed to when the water does land on the right of way, you know, it is considered a city system for maintenance purposes.
Another question with that, and if it's the city ditch, what all responsibility does the city have to make sure that it's maintained? Is it just cutting, make sure that it's gravel and trash and litter free, the water can flow? I mean, what all maintenance does the city perform to keep that, you know, particular ditch clean? And if it's cutting, how often is there like a system as far as does the ditch get cut once a year, twice a year, or settle?
I need to let Mr. Peavy respond to what his maintenance cycles are. I think in general, the responsibility is to keep the ditch in functional order. You know, there's a balance between, you know, when they start getting grown up with trees, where ideally there would not be any ditches along any of the banks of trees, because if it's a concrete ditch, then of course the tree roots typically, you know, will tear the ditches up. Councilman Days can I'm seeing him nodding his head on that. We're spending a lot of money in that district to go through and take big trees off of ditches that, for whatever reason, were allowed to grow up over time. The trash question, that's everybody's responsibility. You know, that's a hard one to answer. I mean, I think the city does take care of trash when it gets in our systems, but ideally it wouldn't get there in the first place. So hopefully that answered your question. But in general, it's to keep the ditches in good and functioning order, to let the water be carried through them.
And one additional question, and I understand that you said that the map is not all the way, you know, adequate. And I see that Councilman Days had hold up a map in his district, but how adequate is the overall map of this, you know, city? Because I know, you know, there are ditches in just about in every, you know, district, but how accurate is it? Is it 85, 90?
Yeah. I would say we're in the 90 percentile. You know, obviously what he held up was a map of large concrete ditches. Those are obvious that those are city maintained ditches. You know, the challenge is, you know, that ditch that's 10 feet deep and 30 feet wide, that's obviously a ditch. The ditch that's 2 feet wide and 1 foot deep in Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith's backyard, that's still a ditch to them. But it might not actually be a ditch in terms of drainage easement or an improvement that was made to carry there. And so that's where it gets a little bit trickier, when the ditch kind of transitions from big major ditches that are obvious, they almost shouldn't be called ditches. They're almost drainage channels is what they are, to when they transition back down to a little smaller backyard ditch that might be along a property line or fence line of a budding property owner. Those are the ones that they get to be very challenging, because in most of the instances, those property owners have built fences, maybe put sheds, have landscaping all on top of a drainage easement. And in those cases, you know, short of them taking their fences down and moving their buildings, there's really nothing the city can do. So every one of them is kind of unique unto itself. I mean, you can imagine it can be complicated. You know, the preference are, if there's a place where water is going, public or private, that it be in a clear of trash, clear of debris, clear of sediment, and the water is allowed to you know, freely flow through it, and not damage any public or private property. Tough to strike an exact balance. It really is.
Mr. Vice President,
Yes, Mr. Days.
I spend a lot of time on ditches because I get a number of inquiries, and that's why I asked Mr. Amberger to provide me with this map that I keep in my office, and it shows, it purports to show all of the ditches in the district and identify them, whether they're city maintained or not. And Mr. Amberger's right, 90% of the time it's correct, and a constituent calls me or emails me and says, you know, the ditch is clogged or something like that, this is the first thing I go to, this right here. There have been occasions when when the map says it's not a city maintained ditch, when it turned out to be a city maintained ditch. And there are kind of gray areas where it's not really clear whether it's a city maintained ditch or not. But most of the time it's clear whether it's a city maintained ditch or not. And most of the time the map is correct. What happened was that when these subdivisions were put in, the developers went in, and in order to drain the lots, they would put these ditches. So you have two houses, the backyards coming together, they would put a drainage ditch right where the two backyards come together. Now it's a drainage easement. In many of these instances, it's not draining city rights of way or city property, it's just draining the houses, it's draining the lots, in which case it's not a city maintained ditch. And the lot lines go all the way back to the middle of the ditch, but there's a drainage easement. And so as Mr. Amberger has pointed out, sometimes people build their fences on the bank of the ditch. Sometimes people build their fence in the middle of the ditch. Sometimes people build a shed halfway across the ditch. And so there are all kinds of reasons why these ditches don't work. And if it's not a city maintained ditch, there's nothing the city can do to go in there and do it, take care of it. Anyway, it's a very complicated problem, and as Mr. Amberger said, each ditch is different.
We try to be, working with the legal department, be a lot more prescriptive when street language acceptance comes before the council. I know we haven't accepted a lot of streets in recent years, but in future subdivisions that will get accepted, the language, the acceptance language will be much more prescriptive about who has the maintenance responsibility, because rest assured, we spend an inordinate amount of time with engineering department, and public works department, and legal department, and then subsequently with council members, trying to sort out some of these issues that fall in that gray area. And it's difficult for everybody involved. And so we're just trying to be proactive to make sure that it's crystal clear who maintains a pipe, a ditch, a street, you know, whatever the circumstance may be. There.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we also have Reggie Hill signed in, and he is signing in for agenda items 08237 and 01248. Essential COVID items held over. 60161, establish the compensation of adjunct and acting municipal court judges. 08234, approve purchase order to the Carrier Corporation for chiller for the County Hudson Senior Center. 08235, approve purchase order to Sunbelt Fire for repair on aerial fire apparatus. 08236, approve purchase order to Image Trend for annual subscription for Elite Rescue software. 08237, approve purchase order to Stevers Ford for crew cab chassis. 21238, authorized contract with Iker Construction Corporation for Michael Figures Park improvements. 25239, grant easement to Alabama Power Company for underground utility installation on vacant lot located at 1814 Kibbe Street. 60243, approved settlement agreement and release of claims. 46245, rename Earl Street as Dr. Michael E. Jackson Boulevard. 21246, authorized project development agreement with Mobile County and SALP LLC for road infrastructure costs for development of an industrial park near I-10 and Theodore Dawes Road. 60247, approved settlement agreement and release of claims. Essential COVID items being introduced for the first time. 34 zero property within the corporate limits for 2021. 01248, authorize agreement with Barry Dunn, McNeil, and Parker for cost service analysis and fee study, Parks Department, $24,700. 08249, approved purchase order to Wilson Dismukes for zero-turn stand-on blowers, $20,478. 08250, approved purchase order to CDW Government for annual subscription to Zoho Managed Engine Network Enterprise Management Software, $24,124.45. 08251, approved item-based bid for swimming pool chemicals. 08252, approved purchase order to AutoNation Ford Mobile for Ford F-250 crew cab pickups, $41,522. 08253, approved purchase order to Petroleum Traders Corporation for fuel for the Wave Transit. 21254, authorized contract with Bagby and Russell Electric for Fire Training Center welding shop service, $30,200. 21255, authorized contract with Johnson Controls for chiller repairs at the Mobile Civic Center, $26,646.77. 21256, authorized contract with Alta Point in support of the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Grant. 21257, authorized contract with Sunrise Network Solutions for security camera upgrades at the Arthur R. Outlaw Mobile Convention Center, $234,442. 21258, authorized master services and purchasing agreement with Axon Enterprises for the purchase of body cameras, tasers, and data storage, $1.3 million annually.
Could we get more information as far as in if this is approved next week? What is the time frame that this will be implemented as far as the body cameras and stuff? Is anyone out there?
We on? Yeah. HCJ, this is Jim Barber. We should be able to implement the new body cam policy by June 1st.
So it's almost like a 6-week turnaround?
Well, the deployment, we'd have to acquire all the equipment. And so, yes, it'll take us about 6 weeks to get a full implementation of that program.
Okay. And, just reading and stuff. So at this particular time, that means that all the officers will be equipped with the body cameras, including all supervisors and et cetera. And let me just pick on one particular person since, the seat is vacant right now. And that's would they include the assistant chief and the chief?
It includes every sworn officer, regardless of rank or assignment. So if they're sworn Mobile police officers, they will be issued a body camera along with specific policies and procedures on when that is to be activated.
Okay. And, I would like to thank the administration for bringing this forth. Those, several council members have been very, a big fan for, having body cameras for some years. And this is great news that every sworn officer will be required to have the body cameras on because again, it will pretty much tell the truth, whether a good citizen was a good citizen or a good citizen was a bad citizen, or a good cop was a good cop or a bad cop was a bad cop. But I do have one other question, Mr. Barber. The question is with that is that, there have been some instance where it has been on television where cops have not had their body cameras on and certain incidents have happened. Is there anything in the manual that does instruct anything in that nature? And just asking.
Yes, again, specific policy and procedure for when that body camera is to be activated in general, whenever they're in enforcement, taking enforcement action, executing search warrants, arrest warrants, or in general contact with citizens. And so there are very specific rules and regulations that they have to follow, which could result in disciplinary action if they don't. And just so you know, I mean, when I say every sworn officer, I do mean every sworn. That includes Chief Batiste and myself.
Oh, well, you chief of staff now, so that don't count. Just
Still a sworn officer.
We're suggesting
I have
though
a
that all the city
question.
councilors wear them also.
I won't.
I have a question, if I could.
Ms. Rich.
Thank you. I don't, I guess the question is the 1.3 million, at one time, I kind of assumed wrong, obviously, that it would take a budget amendment. So I'm curious to know how the money was platformed, and also when it is activated, will this be a written policy that we could give to citizens if they ask exactly what is expected of the use of the cameras?
All right, Ms. Rich, I'll take the first one. Is because
Sure.
we didn't have two and a half weeks of Mardi Gras, there was enough money within the police department budget in overtime savings so that we could cover the rest of the fiscal year for the 1.3 million. I do want to point out that it is a recurring charge, the 1.3 million. That's not a one-time purchase. It pays for the maintenance upgrades and also all of the cloud storage, which, as you can imagine, is huge. And so,
Right.
I need you to restate your second part of your question.
The question
because I didn't
was,
quite
the
understand.
policy that will be implemented by the department, will that be a public piece of literature that we could hand to citizens if they ask? I certainly wouldn't want to give out any misinformation, but I have a sense that our office will be asked, you know, what exactly is the policy and when it would start.
So to answer your question, we have made all of the policy and procedure of the Mobile Police Department public. And so it is accessible on the police department's
Okay.
website. So it's very clear on what our policies are. But again, all of that is being updated and should be available to the public or any of y'all.
Okay, well, that's the question, because I know you had the policy and that information, but I didn't know if there would be any changes that would be implemented when every sworn officer is wearing, and if there's different degrees of when it's on based on whatever your policy is. So again, these are the kind of questions that the general public wants to know about. So I
Yes,
appreciate
and
that.
of course, yeah, and there will be, there are different types of assignments, and for example, sexual assaults detectives.
Right.
We have to be very careful on the privacy rights of individuals, victims, and witnesses.
Of course.
I guess the best way to put that is we look at every example to where the officer is taking some type of enforcement, and that's when it's key that those cameras are activated.
Sure. Okay, that's helpful. I just think it's good. Like I said, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to give out any misinformation, because this is, the public's wired up about wanting to have this transparency, but I know it has guidelines. So thank you very much. That's it. Thanks.
And Mr. Vice President,
Ms. Williams.
I think it's important to note, as this discussion is coming to a close, is that this is not just body cameras. By the time we get through, everybody that's out there patrolling will have 2 cameras, and everybody else will have 1. But it also includes a upgraded taser, and that taser has several new the capabilities. And so I think it would be interesting, if not just appropriate, for somebody to brief this when it comes before the council next week for a vote, just so that we clear up what the entirety of this contract is, how long it will last, what the renewals are going to be, and maybe even touch on the policy as best talked about, because people are already interested. I mean, there's 3 times when it automatically comes on. If y'all remember, there's 2 that I think we all knew about, and that is when blue lights are activated. Secondly, when a guy pulls his taser, when he pulls his taser out of the holster, that camera's coming on, regardless of what he thinks. he should do at that point, or she. And if he or she unholsters their firearm, their sidearm, then it also will activate the camera. And so there's a lot of good stuff coming out of this, and I'm looking forward to kind of hearing a summary. And it'd be real nice if we had such, maybe a bullet that maybe doesn't go out in a newsletter or something like that, but when we all speak, we speak with one voice about what it really is and how this is going to improve everything. Thank you.
One other question, and it's hard for me to get out of the realm of saying Chief Barber and Public Director Barber, but Mr. Barber, my question is, will we be the first city in Alabama for all sworn officers to wear body cameras, or there are other cities in Alabama that all sworn officers have body cameras? I'm very interested in that.
I'm unaware of any city that is deploying body cameras to the extent that we are. And so mainly that was a uniform issue, the patrol and traffic, but I'm not aware of any city deploying to the magnitude that Mobile is.
That's great news. That's good news. Yeah. I mean, it's
Also I have a correction, Vice President, talking to finance. It's actually $2 million for the initial outlay for the camera systems, the additional cameras, but only 660.
It's 666,000 the first year, this year, and 2 million next year, and every year thereafter, it's the 1.3.
So you're approving 666. The remainder will be in the FY 2022 budget, which is over 1.3.
It's 2.
It's 2 combined.
It's 2 million in the FY 22 budget. It's 666,000 in the current year. And then for 23, 24, and 25, it's the 1.3 each year.
Well, that's because we're halfway through the budget cycle.
Yep. But we have to actually pay for a year and a half next year.
I
I
see.
just want y'all to be aware of that.
Let's cut our calculator.
No, I'm just wondering if the resolution should read this for this budget cycle and not the 1.3 million. That,
I agree with that.
We got till next week to clear it up. Yeah.
We'll send you the exact number, but just if you want to make note of it, it's $666,823.17 that you're approving current.
Great.
And I agree with Betsy, that's what ought to be before us. It's because when people start interviewing us, they're gonna go with this number here, 1.3 million. So we need to have the accurate figures before us.
27.
And I have a question. The amount that was just quoted, is that the storage and also the hardware for this till the end of the budget cycle?
And the upgrades.
Yeah,
That is
whatever.
correct. It's
Okay,
yes, it's the whole system. It's including tasers as well as the software and the storage.
okay. Okay, that's good to know.
any other council members? Thank you, Ms. Barber. Madam Clerk.
31259, authorized grant application to Bloomberg Associates for the Bloomberg Asphalt Art Initiative, 25,000, no match. 37260, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer table wine license for Happy Sushi on Airport Boulevard. 58261, declare weeds noxious, group 1613. 60262, approve settlement agreement and release of claims. 60263, accept donation of face shields from the Alabama Secretary of State's office for use during the upcoming municipal election. 03264, appoint Patrick Mitchell to the Police Citizens Community Relations Advisory Council. Announcement.
I do have one other question. If we can go back to 21-256. I think, Ms. Barber, if you're available, Could you just really explain to us about this particular grant, if possible? And this is the one with the Alta Point supported Justice and mental health collaboration grant.
Yes, sir. This is over $700,000 in grant funds for mental health issues, and to be able to, 742,000 actually. But it's a collaborative program grant between the city of Mobile and Alta Point. It's a 2-year grant that is to be spent. And talking to, it has 3 partners in it, the city of Mobile, Alta Point itself, and then the University of South Alabama. And so the bulk of the money, 620,000, actually goes to Alta Point for the treatment and the triage of people suffering mental health problems. So that rather than police officers going straight to the jail or the hospital, they will be going to get them checked in at Alta Point for a 24-hour evaluation. There is money set aside for USA to study the research on how effective the program is, as well as the training. And there's about $60,000 that goes toward Mobile Police to train police officers on dealing with people suffering from emotional disorders or any type of mental problems.
Okay, great. That's good. Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Davis.
Mr. Vice President,
Mr. Davis.
I would like to go back to that item because what I hear you say, Chief Barber, is that this is going to give law enforcement, give the police officers an additional resource when they come into contact with people that are suffering mental health issues. Is that correct?
You are correct. Sometimes we're coming into contact with people that may have been disorderly but not violent,
Right.
that are suffering some type of mental issue. Right now, oftentimes the only choice an officer has is jail. We understand that that's not the best option for getting treatment to people, and so this gives us another option of, rather than tiring up the ERs to get them evaluated through Alta Point for the first 24 hours to see what type of treatment they need, to get them to where they're not causing a problem.
I'm happy to hear this because, we've all heard of a number of instances in other locations, other cities, where police officers have come in contact with someone who's got a mental health issue and it doesn't turn out well. And so I think any resources we can provide that allow us to deal with these people some other way than the legal justice system is a good step. And I'll be interested in hearing how that turns out. Mr. Vice President, the ones I have that we're going to take up today are 31-259, the grant application of Bloomberg, 37-260, ABC, 58-261, declaring weeds noxious, 60-263, accept donation of face shields from the Alabama Secretary of State, and 0-264, appointing Patrick Mitchell to the Police Citizens Community Relations Advisory Committee.
Cool.
It came off. He didn't want to be appointed.
And Mr. Vice President,
Mr. Gregory.
yeah, I have a resolution today to present. Don't know when you prefer to do it, after the mayor or during presentations. Maybe it's better to do it after the mayor's portion of the agenda.
Yeah, I agree, because your people that come down to the atrium, correct?
Yeah, they are going to be in the atrium so that Lana can present the resolution to them in person, and I'll read it from here.
Okay.
What
Let the
about-
president,
Mr. Vice President,
Mr. Richardson.
yes, I would have a resolution pertaining to Mary Steinfels. This is her last week with us. And I would, and I'm going to read it on behalf of all the council members, declaring this her day, this doing something to show that we appreciate her service. It's a short resolution, so I would like to read it at 10:30.
Yeah,
What
yes,
about
ma'am.
What about the sign, renaming the street? In the past,
Yeah, is he coming down today? Or going to be
We-
on Zoom, brother?
Did we send Reverend Jackson? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know of
Councilman
it.
Manager said he would work that out.
I realize that, but you got a plan for it.
I agree with you. Werner.
Yeah. We'll try to find out
I-
between meetings.
I don't think
It's
that
on
he
our
was planning
agenda.
to
We
have the
it over
sign today.
specifically.
We need to carry it over. We're gonna go ahead and pass it.
No, I think we're gonna go ahead and pass it, but, he wasn't, planning to do the sign today. He'll do an official, ceremony, and
Out of
announce
the-
that, but,
All right,
I thought he was gonna
on
be
the- on-
present. But the gentleman,
I don't know. 34022, can we not take that up? That is routine. There are no changes in our taxable boundaries.
Oh,
We
yeah,
do this every year.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
just an every,
Laura?
that'd be
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else from the council? Anything?
Yes, Mr. Vice President, I do have something. I think as you all know, the Finance Committee meeting that was scheduled today has been deferred until April 27th at 1 o'clock. The administration, that we had originally set that meeting in order to get some information about economically and socially disadvantaged business, progress the city's made on directing city contracts to such entities. We received a communication from the city attorney indicating that they weren't quite ready to provide that information, asking for a few weeks extra time. So we're moving that to April 27th. I have also asked our new finance director, this came up last week, this different subject came up last week, which having to do with the additional federal resources we're going to be receiving as a result of the passage of the recent legislation in Washington. And I talked to Finance Director, Mr. Holt, and had him lined up to come today. You'll recall that the information we got last week from Ms. Sapp was that the confines of how we can use the money had not been finalized yet by the federal government. So we'll take that up on the 27th also, and hopefully we will, by that time, we'll know more about it. We'll know more about what we can use the money for and what we can't. So those will be the two things we'll take up on the 27th at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Anything else from the council? Do we have anything from the mayor or the administration?
None at this time.
Okay. If all hearts and minds are